Sure. Yeah, I'll start. My name is Spencer Arnold. I'm a junior in animal science and chemistry. I went abroad for a semester exchange to Dublin, Ireland at UCD this past spring. And what was it? That was it. Okay, that's all.
Hi, my name is Megan Behrens. I'm a junior studying agriculture communications in minor in political science. And I went on a spring break program to Spain last spring.
Awesome. My name is Brianna Gorham. I am a junior in agricultural business, economics, and international agriculture. My freshman spring break, I went on the agricultural production business and trade trip to Argentina, and then this past spring break, I went on the service learning in Uganda trip.
I'm Jacqueline. I'm a senior in biochemistry, and this past summer I lived in Germany for 3 months. Just like it was kind of a weird, on my own, like one of the internship sorts of things that she was talking about. It was like really, really exciting. Didn't know any German. I was completely alone, and it was super cool.
So how did you choose the study abroad program that you traveled on, or like what made you make a decision to do that one?
Quite honestly, I needed somewhere that spoke English because I don't have a lot of foreign language experience, which could be my own fault, and definitely some of you that are freshmen, I would encourage you to get that experience if you have the opportunity and you have the time, because that foreign language is actually really cool when you go to other countries. I was fortunate enough while in Ireland to kind of meet friends from other countries, so when I did travel, like in Italy, I stayed with my friend who's from Italy and with her family. Her family spoke only Italian, so I was able to pick up on really like common terms like hello, goodbye, and she would translate for both of us as she was learning English in Ireland, and it helped her as well. So like I was fortunate in those ways, but when determining my program, it was solely based off of, I can only speak English. I also chose Ireland just because it wasn't something that was super contrast from the American culture, so it wasn't going to be too much for me or too overwhelming staying a semester there. And then quite frankly, it was somewhere my parents could travel and visit, which was really important to me because I wanted to kind of share that experience with them and show them what I was able to do and where I was going and the things I was experiencing while abroad.
I chose a spring break program because I enjoy Iowa State football and basketball too much to leave for a whole semester. So I knew I wanted to still study abroad, and I'm really grateful that the CALS office actually has those spring break programs and smaller trip programs. I traveled outside of the United States before. I went to Costa Rica in high school, and so I knew like the Costa Rica one I didn't want to go on because I'd already been there, and I was like, I've always wanted to go to Europe, and Spain was happening. And at first, when I went to the study abroad fair, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm going to Spain. She's like, no, you're not. I'm like, okay, I won't. And then it was like 3 days before the deadline, and I'm like, I'm going to Spain. I don't care what Mom says. So I applied, and I got it. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to Spain. She goes, okay, I guess you're going to Spain. So I really enjoyed that trip. And it was such a great learning experience. We just jam-packed it into 10 days, and we just like got to go on a whole bunch of agriculture farm tours, and it was just amazing to like compare the United States industry to the Spain industry, and you get that experience no matter where you go. It really just opens your eyes to like what's actually out there in the world. You can learn about it all you want in a classroom, but until you actually see it and feel it, and see the experiences that other people have, you don't really gain that perspective. Hands-on, yeah.
So my freshman year, I chose to go to Argentina because when I actually visited Iowa State for the first time, I got the chance to sit down with the professor who's from Argentina who leads the trip. So I decided to go on that, also because Argentina's agriculture is very related to the U.S. in a lot of aspects, especially with soybeans. They're a really big competitor of the United States. So I decided to go on that, having never been out of the country, and I really learned that I enjoyed being out of my comfort zone. So then for my next summer, I was like, I'm gonna go somewhere with a completely different culture and everything from the US as far out of my comfort zone as I can get in 10 days. So I decided to go on the Uganda program, and I guess it was just amazing seeing the completely different culture and really learning how to embrace that in a country that is so different from the United States.
I had a connection through my advisor. So he knew like a professor over there that had a lab, kind of a biochemistry lab. I liked the work he was doing. So in like October, I think, of the year before I went to Germany, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I just like want to know if you would take a U.S. student for some time. I want to work in your lab, and he was like, yeah, sure, come on over. So I was able to get some like student housing a little bit. It was kind of weird, but yeah, I had like my own little apartment, and I just worked in their lab and lived in this city. It's called Düsseldorf, and it was awesome. So it was a really, really unique experience, and it was like total cultural immersion. Like there was no choice. Like you had to be there. And like luckily I look German, so nobody like really thought I was super out of place. But it was cool.
Awesome. So describe your favorite day abroad. I know it'll be harder for the people who stayed like a long time, but maybe just like if you went to see a really cool place or you had like a funny experience or something like that.
We'll start with one of you guys. It's gonna take me a little bit of thought to think on that one.
I think it was one of my first days there. I had like just started to get to know some of the other bachelor students in the lab, and I was just like kind of doing my thing, and it was just a really, really low-key day. And one of my friends just like texted me. She's like, "Hey, we're going to the river. Do you want to just come to the river?" So it was maybe like 10 o'clock at night. I have no idea where I'm at, but I like get on the train and I go to the river and we play Uno at the river and just like drink a really, really yummy German root beer. And it was delicious and it was awesome. It was so fun to just like chill, and it was like kind of like we have bonfires here. That's what it felt like to me, just like a low key like friends day. Yeah, that's all. It's cool.
So in Uganda, we actually got to go with some of the students who stay at Iowa State's facility there, and they took us into town, and they took us to, they called her like Mother Catherine or something, and she had a dressmaking shop. So there, she only just had a bunch of different patterned fabrics, so we got to pick out the fabric we wanted, and she'd sketch a design for us, take our measurements, and then we ended up going back a couple days later and picking those up. And then we got to wear them. We had a really fun night where we were dancing to their like cultural music and just having a lot of fun. So I definitely think that's an experience I'll never forget. And I have now a custom-made dress to my exact measurements from Uganda. Not a lot of people can say that. So.
All of our days were very jam-packed, like I said. And one in particular that I can remember, we were in the city of Lleida. So we started in Madrid, which everyone knows, like, has heard of Madrid, and everyone knows of Barcelona, which is where we started and ended. But we were in Lleida, and this was the university town, and that's where we spent the majority of our time, as it was immersed in the country, and we were with our agriculture university. And we got to go to a vineyard, and it was just amazing to like see the land and just see the difference in the land that we're used to Iowa where it's flat and like luscious, and it was just super arid and dry, and they had like their man-made like water source over here. And so we started in one area and we saw like just how they grow the grapes. We just learned about that process, and it just blew my mind because I thought that the vines just like stay there forever and it's fine, but they actually like rotate it every 25 years. There's a whole process of like keeping the soil good, just like how we do it here in the United States. And then we moved to the top of the hill, and that is a whole different process because the land and the soil is just completely different from the bottom of the hill. So it's just like one big place owned by the same winery. And of course we got to taste the wine, which was great. And then we went and ate lunch, and then we went to a hog production farm. And unfortunately, of course, African swine fever is a large thing, so we didn't get to like be immersed with the animals. But we just learned from the people who run the facility, and then we actually got to put on like the cotton suits and stuff with the plastic bags for feet, and walk within there. And I think I saw like 2 hogs, through the windows. And it was a very clean facility. And it was just a new, like we went from like a crop to an animal, and then we ended the day still in the town of Lleida and saw the big castle that was there. So like we got to cover a lot of ground in one day in one town, and it was just amazing to see like how things compare to US and then the history of Spain. And that was another thing that just completely blew my mind the entire time, was like we'd be standing on this ruins from like 5 BC, and I'm like, how? Like the United States wasn't even close to being formed then. And so it's just amazing. The history part of it was really an intriguing part to me as well.
Yeah, holding down to a single day, that is the most exciting, I guess, for me, is really hard just because I was gone for that entire semester. But listening to these girls' experiences, there is one day that kind of pops out to me. And I was actually involved in a horticulture class, and we did these walks every Wednesday. and we just kind of walked around. I mean, they ranged from 1 kilometer to 15. It depended on the day and how the professor was feeling. But this day we had really gotten off campus and gotten quite far. So a couple of my friends, we were there at the end, we did the last plan, and instead of walking back with the rest of the class, we just kind of ducked and we're like, let's go sightsee some more. So we took off, and my one friend was pretty confident that she knew the bus system very well. We got a little bit lost, but it ended up being a really good time because we sat down at a pub that nobody had ever been to. It was kind of in the middle of this little village, and I mean, village to Dublin, it's town, whatever, I don't know how to explain it the best, but we sat down, we had a really good pint, some really good food, and it was just a good time, and we got to explore along this like creek, river type thing. We went through a park. It was just a lot of like really random, naturey type things, but we had so much fun, and it all happened because we hopped on the wrong bus and went to the wrong place, and we just kind of ended the day, found a taxi home because it was way too hard to try and navigate ourselves back off the bus, but it was just a good time. It was very carefree, and it was just like, I don't know, it's one of those things that when I think of studying abroad, you think of, you know, just kind of letting loose and going with the flow, and that's really what embodied the spirit.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to like preparing / packing for study abroad, because I know that can be like a pretty big question that we get a lot. So one of the first questions is, when did you start to prepare for your study abroad, such as like when did you start contacting your professors or anybody else that needed to know that you were going to be gone, or like maybe like packing, like how soon did you start packing? Because I know everyone's different, so let's hear some insight.
So like mine was only a spring break trip, and I think I started packing the week before. Of course, my classmates was like the night before, you know. I just like to prepare. I like started, but then I didn't really finish, you know, until the night before. But yeah, I think I wish I would have like looked through the list a little bit sooner, because I kind of got down to the wire with like the converter. I had to like go out and buy one at Walmart instead of like I could have ordered one for cheaper on Amazon. You know, like I just completely forgot about it until 2 days before. So yeah, it's that one's a little bit easier to pack than like this semester a lot.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a pretty organized person. So getting down to it was really hard because I wanted to know exactly what I needed to take, what I needed to pack, all that. And when you're packing for a semester, trust me, it's really hard, especially when you're a person that doesn't like to wear the same outfit over and over and you have plenty of options. It was really hard, and quite frankly, I didn't start packing until like 3 days before. And that was probably the hardest part, is figuring out what you're gonna take. And going away for a semester, you're like, okay, I'm going to take these clothes, this is what I'm going to wear. But really, in the end, the clothes I actually took, I maybe wore for the first week, realized that they made me look way too American, and ended up buying clothes over there that I wear back here. Like, this whole outfit is almost from Ireland. Like, these jeans are from Ireland, this sweatshirt I tried to, like, be in the theme tonight. Shoes are not, but it's very, like, European of me, and that I think was really cool, because I thought I was prepared, I thought I was getting ahead of the game, but really you're not. And just keeping that open mind when you're going and really understanding that you're not necessarily gonna end up with what you take was really cool. But like starting my study abroad journey, I started plenty in advance with meeting with Jody and stuff, just so like I made sure I had a good connection with our study abroad office, the people that were advising me, the students, and really fully understanding what I was doing when I went over there. And you're not truly going to understand a culture. I was very fortunate enough that one of our advisors in the office had studied abroad in Ireland for her undergrad and for her master's. So relatively, she knew quite a bit, and she was able to share a lot of those experiences and give me a lot of good ideas. But really, when it came down to it, it was quite hard to narrow down really what you're going to do, and you can only prepare yourself so much. So I guess like in terms of advice, don't freak out when you are trying to get those things put together.
I have a question. So you said like you would go to the store and like buy new clothes and stuff. Was that like, what was that experience like, just like the store experience in general?
Different. I don't know, I guess shopping here, you have those stores like you always go to, and you always shop relatively the same places, I guess. But over there, you don't know a lot about their stores, and their stores are completely different. They do not have a lot of American, like they have H&M, which you don't see in Iowa, barely, unless I'm just shopping the wrong places, I don't know. But H&M was a huge store there, like Pennies, different things like that. And it's just interesting, like understanding the value of their clothes. Their jeans are way cheaper, and a lot of the time I was like, these are cheap, they're gonna be cheap made, but they're not. It's just what they are, they're just cheaper made. So understanding like the costs and prices was really interesting, and asking questions, because you don't want to sound stupid, you don't want to sound like a dumb American. You go with your friends, and it's just a whole different style. So really, I mean, it was weird, I guess. I don't know if that answers your question well enough, but it was like, I don't know. It was like going out on Black Friday, not knowing what you want, and just walking around like dumb because you don't know what you want, and everybody else is like shopping, getting their stuff, and knowing what they're doing, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And then finally you find something and it all works out.
So my packing experience, I went on both spring break trips, but I remember freshman year, I've always been a planner, always and really organized. So my spring break trip freshman year, I remember even a couple weeks before we left, I had a nice organized list of like bathroom stuff, clothes, pajamas, and all this, but then I also had it color coordinated to which bag it was going into, because when you're traveling for that long, you want certain things in your book bag, so you have those on the plane easily accessible. Then you want so much stuff in your carry-on, because in case your check bag gets lost, you have that. So I ended up sending my packing list to all the other girls who went on the trip also, because they saw it and asked for it. Yeah. So then I tried to use that when I went to Uganda as well, but with Uganda we were doing a lot of like work in fields and with kids and outside, so I think that was easier to pack for. Besides the fact on the way back we had a 12-hour layover in Amsterdam, so a bunch of us decided to leave the airport, and we were dressed for Uganda weather, not 40 degrees pouring down rain. So I'm wearing my Chaco sandals and like a sweatshirt, wandering through Amsterdam in 40 degrees and pouring down rain. So definitely I was more organized, and I definitely brought way more than I should have, as I always do, but yeah, it's kind of my tactics to pack.
I think it's like making me laugh a little bit listening to how like well prepared you guys were. So I was there for 3 months, but I didn't want to pay for a checked bag, so I only took a carry-on. And I got finished with my finals on Thursday, and I flew out on Friday. And I lived 3 hours from Ames, and I lived 3.5 hours from Minneapolis. It was like crazy. It was like so fast, like boom, boom, boom. Like I pretty much winged the whole trip. So if you're somebody that can do that, like go for it. Like that's cool. I recommend it. It was a lot less, like it was a lot more stress-free, just like going with the flow. But definitely if you're like a packer, would recommend doing that. One thing I thought was kind of funny though, so I love my Chacos. I wear my Chacos all summer long, and they're so comfy, I wear them all over. They made endless fun out of me for my Chacos in Germany. Like they do not wear them there, they think they're hideous, they were just like, you look like an American. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, I am American. So like you can maybe try to blend in, but at the end of the day, like as soon as you start speaking, they know exactly who you are. They know exactly like how you're. My best friend is from France, so one day I asked, I was like, do I embody all of the stereotypes about Americans? And he just like wanted an answer. And I was like, okay, so that's a yes. So there's nothing you can do about it. Don't be ashamed about it. But yeah, it's just they're gonna be able to pick you out.
And I definitely think that's something to keep in mind. Definitely hearing all of our contrasting like views and the way we do things. Like some of us are very organized, some of us just go with the flow. You have to be ready to go with the flow. Like I was organized, had my stuff ready to go, but on the way to the airport, like on the drive there, I had a panic attack because I had too many bags for what I actually had for my plane ticket. Like I swear I looked at it 3 times. I knew what I was doing. I had everything organized, like down to the T. I was getting ready to check in on my phone, and I'm like, I think I have too many bags. And my mom's like, are you kidding me right now? I was like, no, I definitely do. I was like crawling in the back seat, looking through my bags, like making sure I had the right number, and ended up having to like, because I probably packed way too much, let's be real. I had to shove, I threw some things out, left them in the back of the car, and shoved a couple of my other bags inside of my larger bag just to kind of condense a little bit. And I was really okay in the end, and most of the time you get fortunate, you get nice people. If your bag's a little overweight or you have an extra bag or something, they're like, it's okay, we understand, like, it's hard. Sometimes you get some people that are not nice and will literally like throw your stuff away. But you can be as organized as you want and really have all your stuff together, but if you're not ready to go with the flow, it's gonna be really hard because a lot of random things come up and just catch you off guard.
But as a positive to that, like to add on to that, like I am very much so like Brianna, like I'm a type A, like, and I'm not very good at going with the flow, but I think one of the biggest things I learned when I studied abroad was like it is okay to like not have it all, like that's literally part of studying abroad. But if you are kind of like somebody like me, like take it, like don't be afraid to go abroad if you're like an organized person, but it will like help you grow in the end, like just to be able to kind of like go with the flow, plan things as you go, that sort of thing. Okay, that was some good answers. Okay, so this is kind of more an answer for the people who studied abroad for a semester. So, like, how did you find housing? Like, how hard was it to find housing? / how did you find housing, and what kind of place did you live in?
So I'm actually looking, and I've narrowed down. I'm gonna go abroad next fall semester again for the semester to a country in Asia, but that was one of the criteria when deciding where I was going this time, is it had to provide housing. Because I went to UCD in Dublin, and there's on-campus housing, but all of that is up to you. Well, as organized as I was, I did not get online quick enough to secure housing when it opened up. And it was taken within hours of it opening up, and I looked like a day after. It was on Christmas break, I was sleeping, I was busy, you know. Forgot to set my alarm, really annoyed with myself still to this day. I literally checked that housing website every single day to find housing. Like, I remember it was one night I was sitting in my room here at Iowa State, and I got on and there was a housing option opened up, and I clicked on it. I called my parents and said, I need your credit card right now. Like, they were at my brother's basketball game. They're like, what? Like, why do you need this? I was like, I need this housing. Like, I need to put this down payment down. Like, I'm not gonna have anywhere to live. And it was like, it was just so crazy and freaky because definitely consider somewhere that you can find housing. It was so hard to find housing otherwise, like in Dublin, just because living in Dublin is super expensive and finding housing off campus is just really hard. And definitely when you don't know where you're going, it's really difficult to kind of like navigate like, oh, is this going to be relatively close? Am I going to be able to make the journey every day? But that was one thing just personally I want to consider when going abroad. Again, I would encourage you guys to consider is make sure it provides housing, because it is hard to go and not have housing or not know what you're doing when looking for housing. I feel like what's the second part of that question? I just got lost.
I'll add something to that as well. So like Ireland was really hard to find housing.
Yeah.
I also lived there too, and that's pretty unique to Ireland generally. But then there's another place I lived in the northeast of England, and it was so easy to find housing. So really the thing is, look up and do research about the area. Like there's a lot of online chat rooms and stuff like that. If you guys are into Reddit, you can even like post something on a thread or whatever. But just kind of feel it out. It is really nice, I think, to go through a program that offers housing if they have it. But you never know. Sometimes housing is definitely available, even not through the university. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. So it's just something to look up and keep in mind.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to have the professor kind of organize most of that for me. He just like told me when it was open on the website, and I had to fill out a couple of forms, some like demographic things, and then they just signed me up for housing. And then it was like every month I got a message that's like, do you still want housing? And I'm like, yeah, every single month. So he was like really, really generous in organizing that for me. And then so I had my housing when I went there, and I had my jobs, and that was good enough. So it was a nice place.
Cool. So we're gonna go ahead and like let the people that are here ask some questions. Any specific questions you can ask them in general or to a specific person if you'd like. But obviously, if you can't think of anything, I have backup questions. But I figured you guys would like the chance to ask some of their questions.
I have one. So how do you guys list your study abroad experiences on your resume?
That's a good question. So my resume is formatted a little bit differently than how a lot of animal science or just ag students are taught to format their resume. So I have like work experience, and then separate I have like leadership activities or extracurriculars. I think it's yeah, I don't remember how I titled it, but I put it in there like where I would put my involvement within State Walk and Bridle. I listed my study abroad in there as well, because to me it's not necessarily a work experience, and hopefully you have plenty of work experiences to list in the other column. It's more or less an honor and an opportunity to grow through leadership, is how I see it. And you don't want to spill too much good information about your study abroad on your resume, because you want that to be a big talking point. At least for me, it's a huge talking point in interviews, and it's really impressive when you're able to talk about that in an interview. And it's very intriguing to a lot of people on the other end, because a lot of them haven't been where you've been, and if they have, it's really cool to connect in that way. So kind of making it stand out as a big thing, but keeping it really minimal so you can expand off that on like in an interview is something I would keep in mind.
My resume is just really jam-packed. And so right now it's one line. I'm near the top. And then as I acquire more, because I'm already going on another spring break trip to London and England, or in Ireland this spring break, I'm gonna probably have to make it another section. And yeah, Mike Gall, he does a great job of just figuring out how to do that. So yeah, mine's a work in progress.
So mine is right at the top, right under education. So it goes education, international experience, work experience. I was definitely have talked more about my international experience and study abroads more than anything else in interviews. Sometimes they get lost even asking me questions just because we're talking about the experience and everything. I do put that it was an Iowa State University study abroad program and what it was, and then something about like travel 10 days so they know how long you were there, learning about the company's culture or whatever. Then you can elaborate on it more. But I also got told, so I'm in a club called the Uganda Alliance this year, and I actually had that under my clubs this past career fair, and one of the women I talked to was like, anything like international, especially her, like that's what she's looking for in like this day and age. Granted, she worked for a large global foods company, but she's like, anything international, especially at like top of your resume, because a lot of people have work experience. Not everyone has international experience or even close to the same international experience you will have. So it's one of my favorite things. As soon as someone asks me a question about it in an interview, I immediately am like, okay, this is gonna take a while to answer because I'm just gonna keep talking. But
My resume is formatted a little differently. I have a CV style resume just because of the field that I'm in. So it's basically just a really expanded resume. So I have 3 pages, and under one of my headings it just says international experience. And since what the work that I was doing over there is just really relevant to my field, I described a little bit of my research and just have a small section for international experience there.
Yeah, and you can always talk, like, if you have questions about it or whatever, if you're like younger classmate, like feel free to talk to upperclassmen about it, or go talk to Mike Gall, because he was the one who helped you. So.
What was like maybe a fear that you guys had before you went?
I was afraid I wasn't gonna make friends. I was like going by myself. I was so scared I wasn't gonna make any friends, or there was gonna be nobody my age. That didn't happen. I made a lot of friends. Just started friends, which is cool.
Argentina, I was scared of being pegged immediately as an American, and then after you're there a couple days, it's so obvious. As you're even just like walking down the street, like you can't help it. So then it wasn't as much of a fear. But then with Uganda, just not even knowing what I was like getting myself into with transportation, roads, housing, or anything like that. So I remember when we flew in late at night after like 30 hours of travel, and my friend actually went on it with me, and we're sitting in the back of this van, and we're driving down the road, and there's motorcycles weaving in and out, like laws about like transportation and everything there, and not great, but yeah, so we're in the back of this van, and they're just like weaving in and out, and they're stopping and going, and it's dark, and we can't really see anything. And I looked at her, I was like, what did we get ourselves into? Like, what is happening? But it was the most amazing experience. But yeah, I definitely was scared of just like the culture shock of being there.
I was afraid of the language barrier. I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and I should have been like fine with it, but it was 2 years since I'd done that. And Spain is obviously they speak Spanish. It's where it originated. And in the bigger cities, we definitely had no problems whatsoever. Like anytime we went to a restaurant on our own without our program directors, they knew like you just could point to the menu and be fine. They also were able to speak English. In the smaller town in Yeda, it was a little bit more of a challenge, but it kind of made for some fun things too, just because sometimes they did screw up our order and it was just like, oh, that's okay, we'll still take it, it's fine. So yeah, thankfully English is pretty universal, so if that's an issue, it's not a huge one.
I guess for me it was more like the thought of the unknown. If I was gonna have like a place to live, or like where I was gonna stay that night, or it just like really random things that in the end I look back and I'm like, why was I so worried? One of my big things was just, this is very Dublin focused. You have to get a visa in Dublin if you're staying for more than 30 days or 60 days, and setting up an appointment is really difficult with the Garda and stuff, and just getting that whole process is very stressful. And before going, they expressed how important that was, and I was not able to get an appointment set up before I went, and it's really hard to set up an appointment when you really don't understand what your schedule is going to be like, different things like that. So that was one of my biggest fears before leaving, is just making sure like I'm not going to get kicked out of the country, which in the end you're not going to be, you're fine unless you do something stupid. But more or less just the thought of like the unknown, like what is gonna happen? Am I gonna like be okay to stay? Am I gonna follow the rules? Am I gonna break a rule that I didn't realize was a rule? Like just random things like that. I feel like that was always one, especially when we went to other countries. It's like, wait, we don't know the law. Like, what are we doing?
Or like if you like some things in the United States that like insult us, you know, or like if you accidentally insult someone there, don't even know because
Yeah.
that was a thing.
We were pretty like carefree and rambunctious too. So
It's a very American thing.
Yeah.
We're always very loud.
yeah.
Everywhere.
Well, a lot of like, from my experience in Europe, a lot of the like Garda, which is the police and stuff, are very military style, and like got their guns right across their chest, and they look like they would like mess you up if you really cause problems. Like I don't know how, like in a nice way to say that, like they're scary. They scared the heck out of me, and I was just like, if I cough too loud, like I need to watch out. Like you just walk by and you just like tense up your like, I promise I'm not doing anything wrong. And everything you do, it's nothing to be worried about, but you're always just like, oh my gosh, I hope we did the wrong thing. And yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Just about like the whole money thing, just in general, how that works.
Like exchanging money or deciding how much you need to take.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything. Okay. Just money in general. Yeah, so the currency exchange for euros to dollar, a euro is a lot more valuable than a dollar, which US I think is like it goes pounds, euros, US dollar. So it was like $1.20 US to a euro, and Europe is relatively cheap, but a lot of things seem more expensive because of the exchange rate. I didn't worry about the exchange rate, or really. I took $300 cash, like euro cash, with me just to have in case of an emergency. And I would recommend, no matter where you're going abroad, have your debit card, have a backup credit card that is like your bank is informed, like this is where I'm going, this is where I could possibly go. Because I went to a couple countries without informing my bank and my card didn't work. So luckily I had a friend with me that could pay, or I had cash. So like just making sure you're thinking about those things before you're going and stuff. Don't carry too much cash with you because you could, sorry, my armrest on my Siri. You can always get cash out. There's always ATMs if you buy something. But it was really helpful for me because my parents just had a lump sum of money back here, and if I need money, I called them. I said, hey, I need money. They put it in, and that's kind of how it worked, and it helped me budget a lot doing it that way rather than having a pool of money and then, when you run out, you run out. Or like sometimes when you're going, you just don't pay attention to that because you're not necessarily worried about that. You're worried about other things. So that was very helpful if you have support from your family like that to kind of use their abilities back here, but definitely have multiple forms to pay, I would say.
I don't think you have to like I didn't go over with any cash. I just got some out of the ATM right when I got there too. So like if you like buy euros here, it it's going to be a lot more expensive than just taking it out when you're like abroad. So if you like wait till you get there, you just survive on your credit and your debit card. That's cool. Don't take a Discover credit card. They have no idea what that is. Discover's like strictly American. So like if you have like a Visa or MasterCard usually works. Those are usually like more accepted over there. But yeah, I put a lot of things on my credit card, mostly because I was afraid people would steal my debit card. So I kept a lot of things on my credit card. Yeah, and as far as cash, the only thing I really ever used cash for was the train, because I think that those could be really, you could put a skimmer on the train ticket booth really easily. So that's the only time I use cash.
Yeah, like going off what they said, like if you're a really like I'm a really worrywart, so like when I went, I was like, no, I want to have like the money, because I was too terrified to go to an ATM when I got there because I didn't know what I was doing. At that point in my life, my freshman year of college, I like probably had never even like used an ATM machine, like honestly. So like I was absolutely like terrified to like do it when I got there. So I took money too because I was too scared to like do it.
Yeah, it's more of a security blanket. For me.
Yeah. But if you're not like someone who's like scared, like she seems like someone who wouldn't
See,
be,
but
like,
I
scared to do that.
I like really, her point is very valid, because I never used cash when I was there. I always used my card. It's just easier. You can keep track of your expenses and like what's happening, and like I don't know if a lot of you guys recorded that. I kept in a budget of every single penny I spent while there, just for a reference. Like I've never looked at it since. But if someone wants to know how much it costs to go somewhere, I can tell you, I guess. But like literally every time I spent like food, anything, I kept that honest. It was just something kind of to pass time too and kind of keep my mind working. But the debit card was or credit card was helpful in that way, and it's just easier because cash, like euros at least, is a lot of change, and that bill, like the smallest euro is a €5 bill, and then change after that, like €1, €2, like that just is.
It gets really heavy.
Yeah.
Like in your wallet, it's just like so heavy. But then it's cool because you're like, oh my gosh, I have like 20 euros in my wallet. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I guess also like know where you're going and like the availability of that. Like I went to Argentina and had no trouble with my card and stuff, but I do know the Uganda program, especially in our college, is really common to go on and really popular. So I guess just knowing that I don't think I saw an ATM, nor would I have probably used the ATM there or my card or anything. And in Uganda, we were only there for 10 days, and they told us, the professors, because obviously a lot of the professors have been there before, the guys who were like helping me plan your trips, they told us like, okay, like $20-30 will probably get you through like your 10 days there or whatever in Uganda.
That's so nice. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's one day in your
Yeah.
People go for a semester, and I think they say they take like $200 and barely spend it. Like in Uganda, yeah, because you're where we stay as students has like food and everything, and there isn't much like shopping like that, and everything is in cash, of course, there. So we did have to take cash, and then really trust the professors and the program we were on. Then it like exchanged it for us because we did not even know how we'd go about that. But yeah, it's really nice, especially if you go on a trip with professors who have been there multiple times before and know what they're doing. But yeah, then when I was in Argentina, there was an ATM. It was a pretty hefty like charge to get cash out though. I think each time I got cash out, it was like $10 of a charge. So you had to know exactly like how much you wanted out, and not get too much, but also not be getting little bits of cash out every day.
And you should know what your card will do, like what ATMs your card will like let you go to, because that's usually set by the bank. But I've had like variability. Like one time I was in Austria and one time I was in Germany, and the ATM that I got out in Austria was like 30 euros or something was the fee just to pull the money. Yeah, it was crazy. It was so expensive. So like for me, I usually took out pretty big sums just to keep it with me, and then I would like keep some at my apartment and like spread it out among my stuff, just because the fees were so expensive. But I have a tiny bank, so that's really important too.
Yeah. And like what she was saying, like when we went to Argentina, like we were in such a big group that honestly, like it like if you know, it's kind of hard as a whole group to go to an ATM. So like when we got there, like they were just like, oh, yep, you're on your own, like whatever. I think, but yeah, like going as a group is a lot harder to like get access to money because like when Abby, like she was not about to stop our heavy schedule to take us all like 30 of us to an ATM. But when you're by yourself, you have like more flexibility, like if you need to get cash or whatever. So you just kind of have to plan ahead and feel out the group.
And I went on the Brexit travel course, and I know like our professors gave us like an allowance every day, like that was factored into our fee. So they'd hand us however many euros at the beginning of the day, and that pretty much lasted us. So I definitely spent more of my money, but like you wouldn't have to by any means. Like that should definitely get you lunch, dinner, and if you go somewhere at night.
Yeah, and I definitely think, guys, there's plenty of us like to connect with that have been abroad, and like most likely the one you're gonna go on or whatever study abroad you do choose, there's someone that's been in the past year or two. Jody's very good about setting you up with those people. If you go to the study abroad office, like make those connections, because that's what's really helpful. Like if you go and talk to those people, it's really fun. Like when I went to Ireland, Jody set me up with a student who had previously been there the semester before. So like that's really helpful just to kind of pick their brain. They know how you're feeling. They know where like the position you're in. We love to share our experiences and talk about that. Like I love to talk about my study abroad. So I mean I feel like that's fair for us all to say. Like we love to speak about that, and don't be afraid to reach out to people.
Are there any other questions?
I think insomnia cookies should be here very shortly. Should just be
Do you guys have ideas of like where you want to study abroad or what you're kind of feeling?
Or are you already going on a spring break program?
Yeah, are you guys
or May?
figured out?
Yeah.
May.
Where are you guys going? Yeah.
UK. Nice.
With Sterling, are you both going to UK?
I'm going to Hawaii and Guam.
Ooh,
Okay, that'll be
yes,
fun.
That's a brand new trip.
Is it?
So no one's held on that one, but but you'll be the first one, so that's exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is anyone thinking about studying abroad for a semester at all? In thoughts? Okay, cool.
I don't have a place picked
Yeah.
yet. I want to go either to like the Netherlands or a Spanish-speaking country.
Okay, that's so cool.
The Netherlands are cool too because like Dutch is not like a super popular language, so they all speak really good